Hey, successful homeschooling made easy. Don't we all want that? Right? We get into homeschooling knowing that we want what's best for our families, best for our kids, and we can get tripped up on things like curriculum and objectives and goals and graduation and transcripts and all the rest. Successful homeschooling made easy really boils down to a few things. You need to nail what it is that you're looking for. By the time my kids graduate high school, I want them to what? What is it that you want your kids to know by the time they graduate high school? By the end of this video, I'm going to give you a couple things to kind of chew on that will help you homeschool more easily. But I need you to also understand that homeschooling is the best kind of hard that there is because everything's all mixed together like spaghetti. Spaghetti is one of my favorite meals. I love it. But it's all messy and everything's intertwined. And it's hard to separate a single thing and say, ooh, that's it. We nailed it. Because it's all interconnected. So, in order for homeschool to be easy, you have to start with homeschool goals. What is it that you want your kids to know by the time they graduate high school? Now, I have a video about that. I'll add the link down below when we're done. But by the time my kids graduate high school, my husband and I talked about this way back at the beginning of our homeschool journey over tears and coffee. Our main homeschool goals are that we share our faith with our kids with everything that we do. Super important that we don't lose that. That's our foundation. Next is that our kids know their basic math. Adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, measuring, the stuff that they're really going to need. Out of all 5 of my sons, only one is a mathematician. And he is a mathematician. He went on to go to college to get, to go through all the calculuses and the chemistries and the physics and stuff that we did not do at our homeschool table. So faith, foundational math for your kids. Marinating kids in literature so that they absorb ideas and story and vocabulary. So marinating them in literature. And that covers things like history and science and all the things. So faith, math, literature. The last thing is that the kids become excellent communicators on paper and in front of a crowd by the time they graduate high school. See, homeschool is easy if you stick to the basics. If you stick to the basics of, adding and subtracting, how to reduce fractions, how to figure out whether 10% off a can of beans is a better deal than 50 cents off a can of beans, and how do you tell the difference, right? And so what makes homeschooling hard is that we look at a curriculum and we think, ooh, this has all the answers. And that's just not true. So if you want to stick to the basics in homeschool, you want to stick to concentrating on heart and attitude and character, because that is a rock solid foundation to build all the stuff on, right? If your kids' hearts are there, if they have impeccable character and their attitudes are ones that lean into learning, then you can add all kinds of stuff on top of that. Now, will your children become mathematicians? Only 1 out of 5 in my house did. The other kids are very proficient with their arithmetic, and they can, measure twice, cut once. They can balance their budgets. They can figure out percentages and do all the things. They stopped short with things like calculus, things like the high chemistries and things, because with what it is that they're super passionate about, they did not need those things. I think one of the biggest hurdles that homeschoolers have is that they think that they need to teach all of the subjects, all of the topics, all of the things to all of their kids equally. And, no, it doesn't need to be that way. The reality is, inside my house of 5 kids, same parents, same homeschooling methodology, We raised a historian, a screenwriter, a musician, a math scientist, and one that's still in school but will likely grow to be a professional rower and doctor, all going through the same types of training, the same types of things. So, what makes it easy is that we added secret sauce to homeschooling. And I have something for you that I would love to gift you a PDF copy of my book, Homeschooling from the Inside Out, not because I want to become rich and famous, because it's free. But inside, it teaches you the idea of studying your kids, right? You start with the basics, all the things that you know they need to know. You know they need to read. You know they need to add. You know they need to speak and communicate. So you start with all the basics and you become a professional kid studier. Hey, Ginger, you become a professional kid studier sometime about the time that they're between 10 and 14, typically right around 12, you really start to see a master passion bubble up to the surface. It's when I could tell that my oldest was a historian. It's when I really could see that my next son was a writer and a storyteller. By that time, my third son was proficient on the guitar and disciplined, and I knew that he had what it took to become the amazing guitarist that he is today. It was right about that time that my fourth son was questioning whether or not we could trust Pythagorean's theorem without proving it ourselves. And then 12 was just about the same time that is a little older than that, but the same time period that my youngest started to express this passion for medicine and put his sights on becoming a doctor in the future. It's right around that time that you can start to see these natural gifts and talents and abilities rise to the surface. And that's exactly the time that curriculum starts to weigh like a ton of bricks because it doesn't fit your kids anymore. There's no one size fits all curriculum to raise up your daughter to be a prima ballerina. There's no one size fits all curriculum that will help your son become a paleontologist if he is totally enamored with dinosaurs. So instead, at that stage, right, you've spent that first decade, plus or minus a couple of years, really getting that foundation nailed in, dialed in. And you're going to keep working on foundational skills, writing skills, absorbing story, etc. You're going to keep making sure that they really do know all their math facts, that they really do know how to measure to 1/32nd of an inch, or if you use metrics, whatever that translates to in the metric system. You're going to make sure that they can stand in front of a crowd and present their ideas or persuade a crowd, right? To communicate clearly. And you're going to lean in to what their passions are. It doesn't matter what it is. It's at that point exactly that secret sauce becomes so valuable. Secret sauce is the ability to take a topic and then to lean into it and to create some kind of project in the course of, I don't know, 6 weeks, 4 weeks, where your kids get to learn about something fantastic and they get to present it they get to present what they learned in a creative and unique way. And what you'll find is this idea that successful homeschooling made easy. It's easy when you're doing what you love, right? Your kids are no different than you. They're no different than me. They want to be drawn in. They want to be captivated, and they want what they produce to mean something. And the way that you get the kids buy-in is that you take something that they love and then you infuse it into some kind of a project that at the end of the day, week, month, or year, they're like, I cannot wait to show this to you. I cannot wait to share this with you. That's what homeschooling, that's what makes homeschooling easy, is that you are able to combine passion and talent with learning in a way that gives value to that information. So don't get hung up on curriculum. Don't get hung up. I was talking to a mom yesterday, and I had shared something online, and comment was, oh, it was a cup that had linear equations on it that were graphed, not linear equations, but equations that were graphed that spelled out letters, the letters LOVE, because of the different curves of the things when they're graphed. And she commented that it freaked her out. Like, that kind of math, just she's terrified of that kind of math. And I encouraged her by saying, "Well, I actually collect mathematicians so that when my kids hit that stage, I know who to send them to, because I don't do that kind of math, right? I don't need that in order to make amazing pizza or sourdough bread or stews or the things that I do. I don't need to know all those linear equations." And then I said, "The reality is that not all of your kids are going to be mathematicians. Only one of mine is." And it's similar to if you take a group of kids and you teach them ballet. I shared this in an email just shortly ago, but if you take a whole bunch of kids and you teach them ballet, most of them are going to be really awkward and lead-footed, right? And clumsy. But there's that one that just gets it. She or he is destined to be a dancer, and you can see it, right? It sticks out like a sore thumb. Did you waste your time teaching the other kids the basics of ballet? Of course not. But are you going to waste their time trying to make them a ballerina or make them a professional dancer? Of course not. It's the same with math. Not everybody needs to be a mathematician. So why do we force calculus and the higher maths on kids that are painters or writers or dancers or um, artists of any sort? It's like, why do we do that to our kids? We don't need to do that. It was a revelation to me that my kids did not need to study geometry. What? It wasn't required. So why it wasn't required for college. So why did I try to get them to understand all of the theorems and postulates and all those things, all those big mathy words? Like, why? Like, the second I realized that, it's like, you know what? We can wait. If you want to do geometry, you can take that in college, but we will study the basics. So we studied like all the basic things that you would need if you were going to build a barn in your backyard. They can do that. They can tell you how much paint to buy or how much soil they'll need or all the things. And we did talk about the relationships of things like lines to triangles, things because we studied what kinds of concepts they would need to know for their college entrance exams. See, that information had purpose because they didn't want to take they wanted to take a certain level of classes. So anyway, successful homeschooling made easy because we don't overcomplicate it. And that is really what makes homeschooling easy. It'll still be challenging because the kids still have to make it through that 12-year-old gauntlet of hormones and transformation. Yeah, that's why God invented chocolate and coffee and friends and all the things. But you're going to make it. Homeschooling doesn't need to be overcomplicated. It can actually be super fun to when you start to see this thing in their heart, blossom, like, "Oh, there's something sparkly happening over there. How can we add some secret sauce to it so that you can flourish but still exercise academic things that you should still get to?" So you just add secret sauce. And in the secret sauce projects, it doesn't matter if you're doing things like lap books or research papers or PowerPoints or any of the things. They're going to be doing academic um, exercises to gather information, to condense things, to polish things, to write and communicate, or to figure out and calculate, depending on what the things are. But it's going to be in a way that they're not really going to know that they're learning as much. They're not going to call it school per se. They're not going to It's not like a learning activity. It's they get to take what they're learn that what they love, and they get to apply it in a way that's like, it's fantastic. So homeschooling made easy. Don't overcomplicate it. Start with the basics. Make sure you have your master homeschool goals down. You need to know what you're aiming at so that you can measure whether or not you're on track. And then always find a way to add secret sauce so that the kids are 100% hooked on learning. Have a great day.